that I have is a good-looking group of people here, but just know I'm imagining all of you in your underwear. It's supposed to help. Okay, so my name is Glenn Bennett, and Bonita Tag Kincaid was my aunt. I'm the youngest child of her older sister, Glenna Tag. I have an older sister, Gloria, and an older brother, Brian. Our father, Gene Bennett, remarried, and we also have a younger brother, Chris. And let's see, I covered that territory. Let's move down here. Okay, now that I've introduced myself, I want to talk about Bonita and the legacy that she leaves behind. And I know that legacy may sound a little pretentious when describing the life of the average person, but Bonita wasn't average. She was exceptional. My hope is to provide a few very brief examples in an effort to celebrate the person that she was. This is one of those times I just spoke about. I want to add voice to her values and her character. These are not simply her stated values. These are the values she displayed in her daily life. Of course, she wasn't flawless, and she wouldn't want herself eulogized that way. But she was good, very good, among the best. Her legacy is her love, her kindness, her instincts, her intelligence, her sense of humor, her bravery, her sense of justice, her loyalty, her compassion, her talents. That is her legacy. Her legacy and her red-headed feistiness has already projected indefinitely into the future. Now, I know red-headed stereotypes like that aren't in fashion much these days, but I assure you, in this case, it applies. In fact, I was just told of one of Richard's favorite jokes, and it goes kind of like this. What's the difference between a redhead and a terrorist? You can negotiate with a terrorist. So Bonita had 3 kids, a slew of grandkids. Some of them had kids, but that isn't her only legacy. Her legacy primarily is her positive character traits that I mentioned earlier. We have to decide our own legacy, because our character will project into the future as well. Then, when our time is gone, maybe someone can stand up here and honestly say a few of these things about us. And maybe the world will be a better place because we were in it too. I want to now focus on her love and compassion. Bonita loved people, just as he mentioned earlier. The best example of her love is in the way she cared for people. She certainly loved her children, and she loved her grandchildren. She nurtured them, comforted them, and even spelled out some hard truths for them when necessary. It was all because she loved them. Bonita loved everyone that was the least bit lovable. And she even loved folks that weren't particularly lovable at all. She really loved my mother and certainly assisted her when she was ill. She watched over me and my siblings, or would do anything else she could do to lighten my mother's burdens in her time of need. She did her part to help after my mother died as well. Bonita took care of her mother in her own home with the help of Richard, and I'm sure others too. She helped her mother to recover from cancer treatments and even provided ongoing assistance so my mom could later maintain a measure of independent living in her final years. Wilma, her mother, had done the same for her mother as well. Bonita didn't nurse her mother, put herself out for her mother, catered to her mother because she had to. Bonita didn't have a crystal ball to know she would someday need similar care. It it wasn't a matter of Bonita being concerned about karma. Bonita did it because that was in her nature. She loved her mother and took her mother's burdens onto herself simply because she loved her mom. Later, her family did it for her. They fixed her house, they mowed her yard, they brought her food, they took her back and forth to her doctor's appointments, and then later, they too had to provide extensive daily care. It kind of turned out to be a karma sort of thing, but Bonita didn't know that going in. See how Bonita's lived values projected to her descendants and to so many others in her family and community. Now, taking care of her mother, Wilma, my grandmother, wasn't always easy for Mama. Mama was very ill and needed help with virtually everything at times. Bonita didn't get actual compensation for that, nor did she expect to. And if the same trend continues, I have a feeling that April, Megan, Tara, you probably ought to start clearing your 2046 calendars and maybe stock up on some anxiety pills in the meantime. Because you're next.
It's going to happen.
Big thank you to everyone that assisted Bonita in any way during these last few years, including family, friends, and friends. Next, I just wanted to talk about her kindness. However, I ran into a problem. I can't talk about her kindness without overlapping onto many of her other exceptional and too often rare character traits. So this is going to be an example that's going to demonstrate her love, her compassion, and her bravery. This was occurring in the 70s and maybe early 80s. Bonita had a close friend, neighbor friend, whose husband was terribly abusive to her and her children. The friend's children were about the same age as Tim and Greg. The relationship between the friend and her husband became so abusive that her friend feared for her life, and she had good reason to. This man was really off the rails most of the time. He regularly threatened violence and committed violence on his family and friends. And you've probably seen this sort of thing play out before. Somehow he just seemed to get away with it most of the time. And it was usually a powder's day in his house. Bonita loved her friend's children, who were high school age teenagers by this time. The teenagers were having to live in the home without their mother deflecting the rage, so they were becoming more and more the target of the rage and abuse. Bonita put herself in between the dangerous, abusive bully and his targets, even knowing the odds may not be on her side. She was loving, she was compassionate, and Bonita was brave. Richard and Bonita provided a home for these young people so they could finish school and have a chance at a decent life, with the abusive father living just a few doors up. Bonnie and Richard knew the personal risk involved and even the risk that extended into their broader family, but they did it anyway. That is character, the willingness to carry someone else's burden, endangering yourself and everything important to you to provide a shield for the innocent. That loving, brave, selfless act has already been projected for. In fact, that teen daughter, now in her 60s, wrote a beautiful piece and posted about her fondness for Bonnie and what had been done for her and her brother all those years ago. So Bonita lives on in her. Richard lives on in her. Their excellent character and their personal sacrifice has now become so projected forward that unborn people will later benefit from that sacrifice and that good character that was passed down, and they won't even know where it came from. But it came from Bonita, and it came from Richard, and it came from those that came before her, before them. And she selected the best characters that she could do, best character example, and she incorporated that into these stories. And isn't that what we all should do? Is try to take the best character examples and incorporate them into ourselves to the best of our abilities. Juanita did. She obviously did. We aren't automatically wired for it at birth. We have to learn them, and then, to the extent possible, incorporate that into ourselves. And by the way, if you think I might be embellishing on the bravery part, that same man later shot his next wife right in the front yard, just a couple of years later. Didn't kill her, hurt her bad, but no embellishment there. She they were in danger, helping those kids. So was Jim, so was Greg, so was anyone else. But anyway, now let's move on to something else. Let's talk about how smart she was. As he already pointed out, she was salutatorian, and I had to look up the spelling of it, so I definitely wasn't salutatorian. I've heard graduating class. You probably know how witty she was. I think she produced kids that may be wittier than she was. She was also so accepting of everyone, almost everyone. If you dated her, thought about a relationship with one of her children, her radar was on and active. However, her radar accuracy wasn't always 100%, and this lady over here could probably tell you all about it. However, she quickly fell in love with Tim's new wife, Priscilla, and she gained Marissa as a new granddaughter, and then later gained a couple more great grandchildren. So that was great. Priscilla immediately blended into the family, assisted Juanita in countless ways, from medical care to having the in-depth conversations Juanita enjoyed. Another example of how fast Juanita picked up on things is how quickly she became proficient on computers. Of course, learning this new skill was frustrating at first, but she didn't give up and quickly became very competent at a time many in her generation were intimidated by her. She also could play video games with the best of them. One of her favorites was a television multiplayer video baseball game that they played there at home. And when her son's friends came over, they were walking into a setup. When the friend wanted the controller to play, Greg or Tim would agree to play them only if they could beat their mom. Of course, this appeared as an easy hurdle because whose mom can expect a chance at beating a video game consumed team? Well, they quickly learned otherwise. Greg and Tim would provide a little taunting and clever sports announcing to frustrate the kid further, and she never lost a game against one of those kids. And that sort of thing played out at their home all the time. That was just the feel you got when you went there. And she was so much fun to be around, laughing and cackling, till you thought she was about to lay an egg sometimes. But, and her family and friends were together around the table. I've been one of these people. And we played cards, with Rook being her favorite. But she also liked Yahtzee. But she'd play chess or Battleship or whatever, if that's what you like. Greg and Lisa's son, Josh, her only grandson, tells of Bonnie making homemade Play-Doh. His metaphor involved how she could shape things. And that is what we're talking about today. She shaped her children, her grandchildren, daughter's family, and even her neighbor's children in ways that will benefit them for life. Therefore, it'll benefit other people for life because they will have the good fortune to have been around those folks. Again, projecting those forward. Moving on, I wanted to describe one of the times she had a big impact on me. Tim and I owned an insurance agency. And long story short, the 2008 recession hit many of our clients hard. Therefore, it hit us hard. We had to batten down the hatches and we're working hard to generate new lines of business to fill the void. Once Bonita realized the situation, she offered to work the front desk for us. She really was a wonderful face for her agency. And as with everything else she did, it didn't take her long to become a pro. She treated each customer cheerfully and would process payments and so forth. She would talk to the customers about virtually any subject they chose. The customers loved her, and we often would, and they would all, often stick around much longer just to talk to her. The same thing wasn't true so much for the rest of us, but they liked talking to her. But anyway, we were always hearing laughter coming from the front, where she worked. And by the time the client got to us, she had them primed to buy whatever we were selling, or even if we had to deliver bad news to them, she had them in a mood where they were a little more accepting of it. If not for her efforts, Diane's efforts, Adrian's efforts, we would not have been able to save that agency. And a big thank you to all of you. This is a true celebration of life. Bonita lived 84 years. Despite her challenges and setbacks, she persevered and didn't let life's challenges change the core of who she was. She didn't spend all these years to be forgotten quickly, but she wouldn't want her passing to consume her loved ones. She celebrated every milestone of the ones she loved, and she had a lifetime of wonderful memories to reflect on in her final days. In closing, I think we all agree, Bonita was a great example for how we should strive to live our lives. She certainly did leave a legacy that the world will continue to benefit from. It is our choice to make the legacy that we leave behind. Are we going to be cruel or compassionate? Are we going to be loving or hateful? Are we going to play fair or are we going to cheat? Are we going to be brave and confront the bully, or are we going to remain quiet while others are bullied? If we take a fair assessment of ourselves, there will always be more refining to do, just as Bonita was always refining herself into better persons as well. It's all our choice. No one can build our character for us. We must recognize good character and mimic it till it becomes our character as well. Till we meet again, from your family and friends, we love you, Bonnie, and we will miss you, and thank you.